Okay, so you can hear me and everything?
Yes, sir.
All right, let's lower the volume on the computer a little bit because it's crazy loud. All right, just say something so I make sure that you can hear.
What's up? Hello? Hello?
Perfect. All right, so guys, just pay attention or don't pay attention. Just don't make noise. This is Mr. Sam Saw, aka Kyopo. We learned about him the last couple of classes, and he's going to take some of your questions. But to start off, the questions that you guys submitted. But to start off, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
What's up, guys? Yeah, man. My name's Sam, aka Kyopo, and I run head of content for Stadium Live, and I also have my own clothing brand on the side. And one thing that wasn't talked about is I had my own YouTube channel, that actually brought me to where I am right now. But yeah, I run content, anything content related, and I know nowadays the younger generation want to be content creators, so I feel like this could be a good time if you guys have any extra questions or something you want to talk about, if you want to get into the business of content, sports or gaming. And so sometimes I feel like I'm living a dream because I'm doing what I love for a full-time job. And so I hope that if this is something you guys are interested in, you guys feel free to ask me questions. If not, I mean, yeah, just feel free to kick it and we can have a chat. But yeah, and I'm from Toronto. And I'm from Toronto, so there.
Yeah, so that was part of the reason we definitely wanted to bring you in, because the international flavor. So it's pretty interesting. One thing that Sam touched on, which I try to tell you guys, is you want to be passionate about what you do. Remember we talked about when we were watching Survive in Advance about how nothing great ever happened without enthusiasm. And you want to be enthusiastic and love what you're doing. You don't want to be. I showed the video of from Deion Sanders when he's talking to his team about how everyone now wants to count down how much time's left to practice, how much time's left to this, and it's not really the way it should be. And just for my class, I do want to show you something from Deion Sanders. He had I want to show right now, obviously, but he had a ridiculous signing in college football. He signed the number one recruit, and the big deal was he coaches at what they call a historically black college, HBCU, college and university, and it's the first time that they've gotten the first person. Guys, what are you doing? Like, you're being so loud. You're never loud. You're like the quietest group over there, and now today you're like, maybe it's just me. I gotta put earmuffs on. All right. So we got the background. The way that I use the questions is it's kind of like I pepper you with them. So sometimes we'll be talking about just how'd you get started. Sometimes it'll be about Stadium Live. Sometimes it'll be about clothing, et cetera, et cetera. All right. So first we're going to start. What's your why? We ask our students, I ask them all the time, beginning of the year, what's your why? So what motivates you really?
What motivates me? Man, that's a good question. Like with the clothing brand, what motivated me with the clothing brand was to give clothing that had meaning behind it. So I'm ethnically Korean, but I was born in Toronto. And then so I was in a place of the immigrant story, never feeling like I actually fully fit in. If I go to Korea, I never fully fit in there because my Korean's not fluent. And then when I'm in Toronto or like North America in general, never really fit in there. So my why for my clothing brand was kind of like having clothing, but adding something to it and that emotional kind of connection to it that other people can understand and vibe with. Even if you're not Korean, people understand what the immigrant story is. People understand what it means to kind of like not fit in. And so that was one part of it with that. And once you have that connection with people and they're able to connect with that, there's an emotional connection and people vibe with that. And that still goes in with content in general. So even when I give out content on the app, there's always that question of like, what motivates me in that is like, what message can I get across? Even if it's just kicking in and talking about sports, how can we do that in a way that will keep people excited, happy? And if content is there to make others happy, give them freedom, like give them like kind of a viable way to get away from reality for a second, then let content do that, right? And so with regards to the clothing line, definitely more like emotional connection to it. With regards to like even just sports and gaming, it's finding ways how I can motivate younger generations to really do what they want to do. And I know that sounds super cheesy coming from like this random Asian guy on the screen, but I really do hope that that's part of it too, because it's like I never once thought that I'd be working in sports and gaming, and here I am. And so it worked out. My why is just to continue to motivate the younger generation and continue networking.
Now, what's funny is they if my students paid attention, which I know they did throughout the year, they probably would think I might have paid you to say that answer, because when you said the emotional, there has to be an emotional connection in business. And we've talked about that since day one, how people, and there's like a Simon Sinek video we watch, people don't buy what you're selling, they buy why you're selling it. They buy, so there's always that emotional connection. So this is one of the classes that did the sneaker design. And all their sneakers. So I showed Sam your sneakers, because he's a sneakerhead. I showed him your sneaker designs, and like he was like, this is such a cool project. And what's cool about it and what I like about it is they're awesome sneakers, but then you read their stories. Every shoe had a very personal story to it. So I'm really glad you mentioned that part.
And that's with any design, guys. And just so you guys know, that's with any design. So it could be just seen as like for instance, you can take a pair of white Air Force Ones and just put like a red or a black drop on it or a green drop on that, and just like it's a small dot of a green dot. But to that design, it might just look like a green dot. But if you're able to explain that story, why that green dot has something and meaning to it, that green dot doesn't look like just a green dot. And so that's what I mean. Like that's so dope that you guys created your own sneakers. Like one of my dreams is to like collab with the sneaker brand. Not Nike though, New Balance, but like that's one of my dreams to like collab with that. But yeah, it's all about emotion. It's all about explaining the story, storytelling it, and then at the same time a little bit of marketing too. But yeah, a lot of emotional design, a lot of emotional connection to it. It's there and it's needed. So yeah, I think that's
you're making all of my lessons not sound so random, because we talk about storytelling a lot too. So I'm glad about that. This question was from one of my students in the other class, but I wanted to make sure I asked it. What did you actually want to do when you were little? Like, you know, like little kids, I want to be a fireman. I mean, I know you weren't like, I want to be a content creator, because like we didn't know. Like, so you guys are living in a time where I'm sure there'll be stuff that doesn't exist yet. We grew up around the same time where like there was no iPhone app content creating. Like this isn't something you could have even imagined when you were a kid.
There's
so, like,
no
iPhone.
There was no iPhone when we were growing up. When I was younger, well, I wanted to be like I always said I want to be an NBA player, but obviously I'm 5'10", Korean, and not no athletic, but you know, like I knew I wasn't gonna make it early on. Definitely did not.
You had no Steph Curry to.
Yeah, I
told
Steph
my class
Curry.
the other day, I was like, Steph Curry gives hope to people that are.
Yeah, no Steph Curry. None of that. I hated science, and so I knew I didn't want to go into anything that kind of field. And honestly, I didn't think about my future, which was kind of sad because I never knew what I really wanted to do. But one thing I did know I loved was sports, gaming, and just having fun. And so luckily content creator. But when I was younger, legit, it was just kind of like, I'm going to own my own business. That's actually what I said. I said, I'm going to own my own business. I'm going to take care of my family. Yeah, when I was younger, I guess entrepreneur, business owner would probably be the only thing that I said what I wanted to do when I was younger. But I didn't put much thought into it when I was younger, which by the way, guys, I really regret, because I wish I started thinking about what I wanted to do in my future when I was in high school. I really wish that, but when I was in high school, all I thought about was just kind of in the moment type of feelings. And I know you're going to get a lot of old heads that are going to talk to you guys about this stuff and be like, think about the future. But I really do wish if I can go back to high school, I would think a little bit more about my future. But yeah, that's just like a side note.
No, that's a great point, because I'm sitting here because if I thought more about my future, you know, I probably would have wanted to do more. If I knew I wanted to be a teacher, I'd be teaching maybe phys ed or something. I'm here because I wanted to be a teacher, and the only thing I could do is teach business because that was my degree. The other thing, and this is more for my coaching class, but like I was been telling them, it's so hard to with the not even just the being a player in the NBA, or obviously that's difficult, but like I thought, okay, I can start from the bottom as a coach and work my way out. It really doesn't work like that because you need to know and have a network. So like one thing, and you touched on it, like when you're on your way kind of from high school and if you're going to college, you don't have to know exactly what you're going to do, but like if I knew that there was I could do coaching as a major, I would have done that right away. And I would have, and things I tell students that want to be involved in sports, go find the head coach, go find the athletic director, whoever it is the first day, and get involved, because that's how you get, these opportunities. With that being said, one of the questions, well, and if I look like I'm typing and stuff, it's because you're knocking off questions while you talk. So I'm like,
yeah, no worries.
what was your major in college? Do they call it college in Canada?
Well, yeah, we call it university, but like universities, like like your college, and then there's like applied college, which would be our college. Anyways, I went to university. I studied business with a minor in sociology. Do I do anything with that right now? No, but business and sociology was it was what I studied. But I to second what you said, if I thought about it first and I knew that there are different programs and I knew what I wanted to do or what I was passionate about, definitely would have been a lot more interested in entering those types of things.
So this is from a student who's interested in thinking about starting his own business. What made you get started with Stadium Live specifically? And because because it's weird, it's interesting because like the clothing company is a sole proprietorship, and Stadium Live is like a whole team. So like, what made you kind of pick to do both almost, I guess? I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, long story short, guys, I don't want to take too much of your time. But long story short, I'll say this, and I know, Coach, you said this earlier, but networking is the most important thing that you guys can do in your life. I feel like networking and keeping positive relationships in your life, because you never know when those people will come back into your life. So I knew the founder of Stadium Live, and his name's Kev. And I used to know him because we used to play the same pickup runs at times, very rarely. And then I also knew him when I would go to a bar and see him and just like talk and see how's it going and catch up. And then one random time we met up and we were talking about a sports app or sports things, and then didn't think about it. 1 year later, I saw a Facebook posting. He was like saying, "Oh, yeah, I started this, looking for people to work with." And I messaged him. I was like, "Let's do it." And so at that time, it was just kind of like this goal. Like I was just thinking, he's created something with our co-founder Paul, and they needed someone in content, and they saw my work ethic, they saw what I did with Kyopo, and they saw my YouTube channel, and those types of things of saying like he knows that I have a work ethic of being able to push myself and do whatever I want, and I'm connected to the community in a certain way. And then he also knew that who I was as a person, because anytime we would go to a pickup run, anytime we would go to see each other at a bar, we still had not a close relationship at all. I didn't have his phone number, but we had a relationship in a sense that, that helped me get into the door with this, right? And so if anything, I will say is networking is one of the most important things that you guys can do. Do not burn bridges. Do not, it might sound good, but you never know who can help you out at any moment of your life. And having that as my network and being part of Stadium Live with that has been, and working with Kevin is something I never thought I would do 4 years ago, 3 years ago even. But now being part of, and I was the first person hired, quote unquote, with Stadium Live. And being part of the founding team, and the first person they hired as a content person is really unheard of too for an app. So what I'll say to that, long story short, just network.
Yeah, I tell specifically my athletes, when you're at like a basketball tournament, you don't know who's standing behind you to buy a hot dog. It could be the scout from someone, and if you're being a jerk and throwing the F-bomb around, and he's sitting up at the bleachers going through his book, and he sees, oh, that's that pain in the ass kid that was behind me for a hot dog. Cross his name off. Yeah. So the other thing with your business, how did so you come up with the idea, you've got all the merchandise, you got all the stuff. How do you make it grow?
Man, how did I make it grow? At that time, what I didn't have a website. I just used social media, Facebook. I didn't know anything about the clothing business. I found blanks, put it on a t-shirt. I asked one of my friends, yo, can you quickly, actually this design right here, put the Korean flag and the Canadian flag together. I made this design, put it on a t-shirt, put it on Facebook, sold out, did it again, sold out. Didn't know what was going on. So first thing I noticed with the clothing brand was like, I didn't know what I was doing, but I just did something. And so doing something in the direction and doing it passionately and doing it with a good heart, I feel like put me in a place where it grew by word of mouth. And then once that happened, I made a different hoodie that sold out and just kept on going at it and made a website. And actually, most of my people that buy my merch now are in the States. And so really didn't put any money into marketing. It was really just word of mouth, doing Instagram lives, connecting with the community, connecting with anyone that followed, and really giving the best service that I can for them, because the clothing in general at that point had zero quality to it, right? It was just any blanks that people could have. But then researching about manufacturers and everything like that. But first, I would say it was just word of mouth, like legit, just social media and no marketing tactics or anything like that. Just old school word of mouth, talking to people and people saying like, that's dope. And it just grew.
Yeah, and one of the things that we looked at on your website, on the clothing site, your story. And what was interesting is there, like, and you touched on it all, but just to kind of reiterate, like, it wasn't like you were in high school, like taking design classes or taking clothing manufacturing. It was just, you were like, I have this story. And that's another thing. And that's what you said before, you have this why, and you have this story that people can connect to. And like the hoodie you're wearing right now makes me laugh, because if that was around when I was in high school, all my Korean American friends would have bought it, because because every single one of them, and I think it's a little bit different for the generation I have in my classes, but growing up for me, every Korean American kid's parent was either doctor, lawyer, Harvard. Like, that was the three things. Mm-hmm. And so like, and I only had a handful of friends that did that. And so this, like, they would laugh and they would totally rock the hoodie, and I forget what that means. It means something. What is
Hakyo?
Yeah.
Hakyo means school. It just means school. Because every parent wants your kid to go to Harvard. I just purposely put it at Harvard colors, but I could just tell people I didn't go to Harvard, but I went to school. And so Harvard colors and everything. So, it's a joke that maybe not, the younger generation might not understand, but growing up, every parent's dream was that their kid to go to Harvard. And unfortunately, even I'm from Toronto, even from being in Canada, like, they're like, if you go to Harvard, you can go to Harvard. But as we all know, not many people get to go there. So
no. All right, let's see.
But I'm glad I didn't, because I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing now if I did go to Harvard. So I'll say that.
Let's see. I want to make sure I get students that are in here, their questions. Oh, this is a good one. So when with failure, does failure motivate you to work harder, or is it a sign? Like, how do you tell the difference? Because everyone says failure motivates me, but how do you tell the difference between, all right, this is motivation, or I need to take a step back and kind of reevaluate what's going on?
Whoever asked this question, I saw this question and I was like, dang, that's a tough question, because
Andy, that's your question. Andrew, that was your question.
There's the whole idea of failure is kind of tough, right? And it's hard to understand, because at a certain point, failure does mean maybe you should go into a different direction. And at a certain point, failure does mean like it's just something and you got to push yourself, because there's a grind mentality. One thing I will say, and I don't know if coach is going to be angry that I'm going to say this or whatever, but I'm a firm believer that also says, like, everyone's like, oh, just go for your dreams, and like, if you push hard, it'll happen. Unfortunately, the truth is that's not the case. Like, celebrities will tell you that made it, that will say, like, if you push and you guys, like, anything can happen, anything's possible. Sure. But not small percentage get to that point. So for me, when it comes to failure and understanding what it motivates me, one, I don't like to be told what to do. If someone says I can't do something, I want to try to prove them wrong. But also at the same time, for me, I needed to surround myself with good people to let me know and help me guide me in that direction. So for instance, who I surround myself with with regards to Kyopo and the business and failure in that kind of sense, I have other business owners that tell me, okay, you know what, that's not looking so good, or like, this type of thing. When it comes to Stadium Live, I have my team around me and I tell them all the time, you have to be honest with me and you have to call me out on certain things, because when we fail in certain things, like, is it a point where it's like, you know what, we got to stop here and let's change directions, or it's kind of like, you know what, no, we believe in this could work, and let's push each other. You can't have a bunch of yes men around you. You got to have people around you. To think that you guys are doing this alone is total BS, in my opinion. I do think you got to surround yourself with good people. Who you surround yourself with is like legit who you become. And surround yourself with good people. Surround yourself with people that are successful, or not even successful, that speak actual truth in your life. Surround yourself with these types of people, and it'd be good, because failure, for sure, motivation, grind mentality is great, but there are times where you're gonna have to readjust, and some people are gonna have to tell you like, hey, you failed. That's good. Learn from it. Move on. And so I hope that answers your question. I'm not sure if it does, but I think that was a really good question, because I struggle with that still.
It definitely, I think, answers it, and you definitely made a great point when you said, just because you work hard and you want something, it's a cliche at the end of the day. Like I said the example the other day, I could go into the gym from the time I was 15 to the time now, work out every single day, and I would never be Michael Jordan. I would never have his athleticism and never have this. And we watched Moneyball earlier on, and there's a great line, basically how at some point in everyone's career, in athletics especially, it's the end. And you have to figure out, and noticing that and identifying that is hard to do. But on the flip side, like we'll take Steph Curry again. He had a lot of ankle injuries, and there was a lot of doubt whether he could come back and be the player he is today, and he was able to do that. But it's a self thing. And one of the things that Sam mentioned that I 150% agree with is surrounding yourself with people that aren't just gonna yes you to death. When I started my first head coaching job and I had to get assistants, I picked on specifically former head coaches that were friends of mine, but that knew more than I did, and would tell me when I was doing something wrong. And, in timeouts, they would be, and I kind of hate the game of telephone. So like we watch a lot of videos in here where maybe a teacher normally would just kind of try to regurgitate. I'm like, why would I try to regurgitate, like a coaching clinic for a team? Why would I try to repeat what Mike Krzyzewski said? I'll just show Mike Krzyzewski. It's like my assistant would be like, why don't you run it? And I'd be like, dude, take the board. Like, it's a timeout. We have 30 seconds. I don't have time to like dissect what you're going to say and spit it back. Just do it. And I think what happens is people get too worked up on who's getting all the credit for like little specific things. And then at the end, it's a big picture. So you actually answered this one, so I can do it here. What were like the initial troubles in terms of having your own business? And what I mean by that is what I've explained to them before is when you have your own business, people get caught up in the idea of you make your own hours. Well, no, you don't. Your hours are 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. My dad owned a pasta shop for my whole life until like 2 or 3 years ago. And if the refrigerator broke at 3 a.m, he had to get in his car and drive to New York and fix it. Whereas, the guy who's working 9 to 5 doesn't have to worry about that. So I guess let me repeat the question. Were you ready for that? Like, this is my life, or, like.
Yeah, I think people have this like misconceptions, like, yeah, you own your own business and then like you set your own hours and whatnot. And if that's your mindset when you have and start your own business, you're gonna fail. When you're starting your own business, you have to understand that you envy that 9 to 5 in the sense of they can shut down when they want to shut down their mind, and how hard you work doesn't relatively affect your pay in any kind of way. So for instance, if I didn't work on what I was doing with my own business 24/7, or like just constantly going at it, there comes to a certain time where I know that'll affect me, because like it won't make me money in general. So owning your own business with regards to the hours and everything, it's legit. It's how much you put into it is how much you're gonna get. Do not think you're going to start making a business and thinking you're only going to be working 8 hours a day. You know, it was a slap in the face when I opened my Kyopo, and it wasn't even a side hustle at the time. But the side hustle in itself was costing me 8 to 10 hours a day regularly on top of my regular job. And so when you're doing that, like, understand that when you're starting your own business, and it's not this own freedom thing of like, you know, oh, I get to do what I want. Trust me, you got to put your work into it. And anyone that says like, oh, it's going to be different with you, whatever, it's not true in that kind of way. And so with that, my dog is just freaking out in the background.
Oh, show Kobe. So he's got a dog, Kobe. Everyone will like
Kobe. Come,
this.
Kobe. Show Kobe. But yeah, that's that part of it. And this is my puppy.
And this just for my. So we just have a couple questions left. What do you create? Like, where do you get your ideas for your content or your designs?
Where do I
come up with the ideas to create the designs or the content, you know, that you come up with?
Oh man, you can get inspired, and this is the one thing that I love about content and design is that you can get inspired by other people and other things. Like, doesn't mean that you have to copy it. I would say never copy things, but you can get inspiration and you can get those ideas and be inspired by other things. So for instance, for me, a company that inspired me a lot was Bobby Hundreds. I don't know if you know the Hundreds. Hundreds inspired me a lot with a lot of the things that I grew up with. You know, Virgil Blow nowadays with, like, you know, RIP, rest in peace to Virgil. Those types of things. With regards to content, sometimes the one thing that inspires me the most, to be real quick with it, is what is something that I want to watch and how can I put my spin to it. And so I enjoy watching, actually not I enjoy watching. I hate watching Stephen A. Smith and Max Kellerman. I hate it. I don't like it. But at the same time, it's like, it's content that gives me a reaction and I still watch it.
It's clicks. It gets clicks.
Yeah. So how can I take that and spin it in a way that I can make content that gives people a reaction in the same type of vibe? And at the same time, with this whole thing, as I say this, and I know I'm all over the place right now because my dog.
Don't worry, you have no idea. I mean, yeah, everyone's nodding because I'm about to say I'm all
right. So with that, I'll say, like, when you're coming to content creation, understand that sometimes some content is mindlessly stupid. It's mindlessly, you just watching, you're just like, your brain doesn't have to work. But if you want content that creates influence, and you want content that people know, consistency and creating content that has depth. Now, character and depth to it, that's the next level that's going to take you as a content creator to the next level. And so what does that mean? And how, like, for me, with being inspired by different things, I look for people that have content that is simple, but that has depth to it. And if you go on TikTok, if you go on YouTube, if you go on Instagram, you will see the difference between a quote unquote an influencer with a lot of followers, but has no influence. But then also an influencer that has a lot of followers, but has influence because their content has depth. An example for me would be like Charlie, whatever from TikTok, the dancing girl, versus like a Casey Neistat on YouTube. Casey Neistat has crazy following, but he has content that creates depth to it. And one thing too is be genuine in who you are with that, and so, that inspires me.
So this is going to be our last question, and you went right into it. The question was, who do you recommend? Like, do you recommend any books or people to follow? So I already wrote down Bobby Hundreds and Casey Neistat. But is there any other people that you would say to recommend to follow on social media in terms of, you know, if you want to start your own business or for just ideas or whatever?
Anyone, I'll tell you who not to follow. Anyone that promises you success in kind of certain ways, like a quick book or any kind of course in success and that kind of stuff, or do this NFT or whatever, I'll say those are the type of people you don't want to follow. But with regards to who do you want to follow people that inspire you, not just because of their lifestyle, but because of their message and their work ethic. And then do a deep dive on certain things like that. Follow people like House of Highlights and see how House of Highlights grew. Follow people like different things. And it's your job to dive deep into it, calculate those things, emulate it, be inspired by it, put your own spin to it, and you'd be surprised at how many people will be willing to follow that kind of journey. So
perfect. All
I'll,
right.
yeah, I'll tell you who not to follow. Like, there's some borderline people. I'll say this: it might be Gary V. Gary V is relatively borderline. Follow, don't follow. And if you watch his content, you'll understand why.
So don't follow the guys that start their YouTube video by showing you all their Lamborghinis, right?
Yes. Okay. I would stay away from that. In my opinion, I would say, because you got nothing to learn from that. If that inspires you because you want to be rich, there's a lot of other ways to be inspired that you want to be rich. Just go outside and look, and you see a nice house. Boom, I'm inspired.
All right, we only have a minute left. Anything you want to say to them before we wrap up? I've been pushing Stadium Live on them, so hopefully they get more into it maybe during break. Next week I'll kind of show them it again. And
yeah, man. If you guys want to download Stadium Live, download Stadium Live. I think Stadium Live is a dope app. We're creating a sports app, a next way to interact with sports. If you think it's whack, that's all good too, because Stadium Live app is not going to be for everybody. But if you want to give it a test out, give it a test, and you never know if you're going to really enjoy it or not. And also at the same time, if you guys have any questions, always feel free to send me a DM at Kyopo with an _ at the end of it. I'm more than willing to respond, and I'm always willing to connect with different high school students, younger generations, so that we can see and hopefully inspire other people. And I know that sounds cheesy, but it's because I know, and I've been in your seat where it's like kind of like, oh, school is whack, I don't know what I'm gonna do. But anyways, that's what I'll say. Download Stadium Live app if you guys can.
all right, say bye, everybody. Once the bell rings, say bye. All right, thank you, Kyopo, Samsa.
Yes, sir.
Catch you later.
Yes.